Have you ever wondered if you're one of the chosen ones, those called to a higher purpose in these final days? Do you feel a deep stirring in your spirit, as if you've been set apart for something greater, but aren't quite sure what lies ahead? Being chosen by God is an incredible honor, but it comes with challenges, tests that every chosen one must face. These tests can be difficult, but they are essential for preparing you to walk fully in God's purpose. What are these tests? How do you know if you're passing them? And more importantly, how can you make sure you are truly aligned with God's calling for your life in these crucial times? In today's video, we're going to dive into the 4 specific tests that every chosen one must pass to be used by God. By understanding and overcoming these challenges, you'll be able to move forward with confidence, knowing that God is refining and equipping you for His divine mission. Before we get started, if you're seeking to grow deeper in your spiritual journey and want to uncover more wisdom like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update as we explore these powerful truths together. Now let's get started with the first test, the test of faith. The first and perhaps most fundamental test every chosen one must pass is the test of faith. This test goes far beyond simply believing in God's existence. It is about cultivating an unshakable faith that remains steadfast even when everything around you is falling apart. This kind of faith is not a surface-level belief that wavers in the face of trials, but a deep, abiding trust in God that endures through all circumstances. When life situations seem to directly contradict God's promises, when prayers go unanswered, dreams are delayed, or unexpected hardships arise, it is in these challenging seasons that God works to build a rock-solid faith within us. This is a faith that is not dependent on what we see, feel, or hear, but is anchored solely in His Word and His unchanging nature. The test of faith often involves a journey into the unknown, where God calls us to step out of our comfort zones and into a place of total reliance on Him. It is a journey where the path ahead is unclear and the usual markers of progress are absent. Here, God strips away our reliance on earthly securities, such as finances, relationships, and health, forcing us to confront the reality of whether our trust truly rests in Him or in the comforts of this world. This test challenges us to trust God's character and promises even when we have no visible evidence to support that trust. Consider the story of Abraham, who is often referred to as the father of faith. God promised Abraham that he would become the father of many nations, yet he and his wife, Sarah, were childless and well beyond childbearing years. Despite this apparent impossibility, Abraham believed God's promise. His faith was tested over many years of waiting, but he did not waver in unbelief. Instead, he grew stronger in faith, fully persuaded that God had the power to do what He had promised. It is this kind of unyielding faith that persists despite overwhelming odds, that God desires to cultivate in each of us. The test of faith is not about having all the answers or understanding every aspect of God's plan. Instead, it is about trusting in God's goodness, His faithfulness, and His sovereign control over every detail of our lives. It is about holding on to His promises when everything else tells us to let go. When we face situations that make us question His presence or His promises, such as a devastating loss, a prolonged illness, or a season of financial hardship, our faith is being refined and purified. In these moments, we learn to trust God not because of what He does, but because of who He is. This test also reveals the true nature of our faith. Is it based on circumstances, or is it rooted in a deep relationship with God? When the storms of life hit, it becomes evident whether our foundation is built on the shifting sands of external conditions or the solid rock of Christ's promises. As it says in Hebrews 11:1, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Faith goes beyond our natural understanding and senses. It is the spiritual assurance of things unseen and the confidence that God's word is true, no matter what. When you find yourself in a season where your faith is being tested, it can feel overwhelming, even isolating at times. But remember, these moments are not without purpose. God is at work within you, shaping and refining your heart. He is strengthening your trust, deepening your reliance on Him, and preparing you for the incredible plans He has for your life. Just as gold is refined through fire, so too is your spirit being purified and strengthened through trials. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to grow in faith, to learn the art of surrender, and to discover a deeper relationship with God. Embrace this test of faith with open arms, knowing that through it, you are being transformed. You are becoming a steadfast and immovable follower of Christ, someone who can weather the storms of life with unwavering hope. Through these trials, God is equipping you for every good work He has prepared. He is building in you the strength and resilience necessary to fulfill your divine purpose. Trust in His process, for He is faithful, and in due time, you will reap the harvest of your perseverance, stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted in Him than ever before. The second critical test every chosen one must face is the test of time and patience. This test pushes us to trust in God's perfect timing rather than our own, which can be incredibly challenging in a world that craves instant results and quick fixes. In today's fast-paced society, where everything is available at the click of a button and waiting is often seen as a sign of weakness or inefficiency, learning to wait on God can feel counterintuitive and even painful. Yet, this is precisely why the test of time is so vital. It cultivates within us the essential virtue of patience, teaching us to lean not on our own understanding, but on God's infinite wisdom and flawless timing. This test of waiting is not simply about enduring hardships or surviving challenging times. It is far more profound than that. It is a divine opportunity, an invitation to grow in trust, to deepen our relationship with God, and to allow our character to be refined in ways that only the waiting process can bring. In these seasons of delay, we are being stretched and shaped, learning what it truly means to depend on God's timing rather than our own desires or expectations. Waiting on God with a patient and open heart allows us to step back from the urgency of our immediate circumstances and see the broader perspective of God's divine orchestration. It teaches us a crucial spiritual truth, that God's delays are not denials. They are not signs that He has abandoned us or that our prayers have gone unheard. Instead, they are part of a far greater plan, a meticulous preparation for the purpose He has in store for us. It is through this period of waiting that we are given the chance to grow, not only in faith but in wisdom and resilience as well. Think of it like the planting of a seed. Before a seed can ever become a thriving plant, it must first be buried in the soil. It must go through a period of growth in the hidden darkness, a quiet, unseen process of transformation that takes time and cannot be rushed. In the same way, we often must go through these hidden seasons of waiting, where it feels as though nothing is happening, and we are buried beneath the weight of uncertainty. Yet it is during this very time that God is at work, nurturing our spirit, growing our faith, and preparing us for what is to come. This period of waiting is sacred. It is where our spiritual roots grow deeper, where our dependence on God becomes stronger, and where our inner life is nurtured. It is where we are shaped into the person God has called us to be, strong, steadfast, and ready for the next season. Without this period of waiting, we would not be equipped to handle the fullness of the blessings or the responsibilities that come with God's plans for us. Just as the seed must first be transformed in the darkness before it can sprout and thrive in the light, we too must trust that our waiting is purposeful, that we are being prepared in ways we may not yet understand. The third test that every chosen one must face is the test of rejection for righteousness. This test is perhaps one of the most painful, but also one of the most spiritually refining experiences. In a world where moral relativism is increasingly the norm, standing firm in God's standards of holiness and righteousness often comes with a significant cost. We live in a time where right and wrong are often seen as subjective, and where upholding absolute truths can make you a target for criticism, misunderstanding, and even isolation. Yet the call to follow Christ is not a call to conform to the world, but to be set apart, to live in a way that honors God's truth, even when it is unpopular. Choosing to uphold God's principles in a culture that frequently promotes the opposite can be incredibly challenging and uncomfortable. It may mean standing alone in your convictions, being misunderstood, sidelined, or even outright rejected by friends, family, or society because of your commitment to living according to God's ways. Jesus himself warned that following him would come with opposition. If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. This rejection is not a reflection of your worth, but rather a consequence of standing for righteousness in a world that often rejects the light. This test is more than just an external trial. It is a deeply personal one. The test of rejection for righteousness challenges not only your faith, but also your identity. It asks, are you willing to stand firm in your faith, even when it costs you the approval of others? It invites you to examine where your true allegiance lies. Is it with God, or is it with the fleeting opinions of man? This test forces you to seek a deeper relationship with God, to find your validation in Him alone, rather than in the acceptance of those around you. It is in the fire of rejection that God often refines our spirits, teaching us to lean solely on Him for our strength, our comfort, and our sense of belonging. Through this test, we are reminded that our identity is not rooted in how the world perceives us, but in how God sees us. His love, His approval, and His truth are what define us. Rejection for righteousness is a painful but powerful invitation to grow closer to God, to anchor ourselves in His unchanging love, and to rise above the need for worldly affirmation. Moreover, this test serves to deepen our understanding of Christ's own journey. Jesus was the ultimate example of someone who was rejected for righteousness' sake. He lived a perfect, sinless life, yet He was scorned, mocked, and crucified by the very people He came to save. When we face rejection for choosing to live according to God's standards, we are sharing in Christ's suffering. But in that suffering, there is a profound blessing. Jesus Himself said, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This rejection, though painful, aligns us with the very heart of God and His kingdom. So while this test may be one of the most difficult to endure, it is also one of the most spiritually significant. In choosing righteousness over acceptance, we are not only growing in our relationship with God, but we are also preparing ourselves for the greater plans and purposes He has in store for us. We are learning to walk the narrow path, the path that leads to life, even when it is hard and lonely. In the midst of rejection, let us remember that we are never truly alone. God is with us, and He honors those who honor Him. The world may turn its back on you, but God's love remains constant, unwavering, and full of grace. Standing firm in righteousness, though it may come at a cost, is ultimately the path that leads to true fulfillment and eternal reward in God's kingdom. The fourth and final test every chosen one must endure is the wilderness experience, a profound spiritual journey that requires not only endurance, but transformation. This test is not just about surviving adversity, but about growing through what you go through. It is where hardship is turned into spiritual maturity, where challenges become opportunities for deepening your faith and discovering who you truly are in God. Just as Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tested and prepared for His ministry, so too will God lead His chosen ones into their own wilderness seasons. This test can take many forms: periods of isolation, financial hardship, the loss of a loved one, illness, a crisis of faith, or other deeply challenging circumstances that strip us down to our very core. It is in these moments that we are often forced to confront our deepest fears, insecurities, and even the parts of ourselves that we'd rather ignore. In the wilderness, there is nowhere to hide. It is a place where all the distractions and comforts of life are removed, leaving you face to face with yourself and God. For many, the wilderness can feel like abandonment. You may wonder, where is God? Why am I going through this? But in truth, The wilderness is a place of profound divine purpose. It is not punishment but preparation. Just as Jesus fasted and prayed for 40 days, battling temptation and enduring the harshness of the desert, God uses the wilderness to test, strengthen, and refine us. It is in the wilderness that we learn to rely on Him completely. When all else is stripped away, we are left with the realization that God is enough. It is in this space of raw vulnerability that He does some of His deepest work within us. The wilderness is a season of spiritual purification. In this barren place, God allows us to face trials that reveal the impurities in our hearts, the doubts, fears, pride, and self-reliance that we often carry unnoticed. As we journey through this challenging phase, God invites us to surrender these burdens, to let go of the things that hold us back from living fully in His purpose. Through this process, we are transformed from within, becoming more aligned with His will and more dependent on His strength. Though it is painful, this period of testing is where some of the most powerful transformations take place. Like the Israelites who wandered in the desert for 40 years, this spiritual desert becomes a time of faith building. The Israelites had to learn to trust God day by day, relying on Him for manna, water, and guidance. It was through their trials that they were molded into a nation ready to enter the promised land. Similarly, in our own difficult seasons, God teaches us to trust Him, to depend on His provision, and to follow His lead, even when the path ahead seems unclear. One of the most important lessons in this testing ground is that God is always present, even when we feel alone. In these desolate periods when it seems like the heavens are silent, God is working in ways we cannot see. He is stretching our faith, deepening our relationship with Him, and preparing us for what lies ahead. Just as Jesus emerged from His time in the wilderness empowered by the Spirit to begin His ministry, so too will we emerge from these trials stronger, wiser, and more spiritually mature, ready to step into the next phase of our calling. This period also teaches us patience and endurance. In a world that craves instant gratification, these moments force us to slow down, to wait, and to trust in God's timing. It's a time where we must learn to be still, to seek God in the quiet, and to understand that He is preparing us for something far greater than we can imagine. We learn to rely not on our own understanding but on God's wisdom, and through that trust, we discover the beauty of surrender. Furthermore, these trials prepare us to become more compassionate and empathetic toward others. As we endure our own challenges and experience God's comfort and provision, we become more equipped to comfort and encourage those who are going through similar struggles. These experiences are not just about personal growth, but about equipping us to be vessels of God's love and grace to others. Ultimately, this journey is about transformation. It is the refining fire that prepares us for our divine purpose. While this phase may feel like a place of loss, it is actually a place of gain, where we develop spiritual strength, clarity, and a deeper connection to God. Through it, we come to understand that God's plans for us are far greater than the temporary struggles we face, and that He is faithful to lead us out when the time is right. As difficult as these seasons can be, they are essential parts of every chosen one's journey. Without them, we would not be fully prepared for the greater blessings and responsibilities that God has for us. These trials strip away everything we don't need, leaving us with a heart that is fully surrendered to God, a faith that is unshakable, and a spirit that is ready to fulfill His calling. So, if you find yourself in this season of hardship, remember this: God is with you, shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something far greater than you can imagine. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a deeper, more powerful chapter. When you emerge, you will be transformed, equipped for every good work that God has prepared for you, and ready to step into the fullness of your calling. As we come to the end of today's powerful exploration, we've uncovered the 4 crucial tests that every chosen one must pass to be used mightily by God in these last days. Each of these tests is a divine opportunity to grow closer to God, to refine our character, and to strengthen our spiritual foundation. They are not meant to break us, but to build us, to prepare us for the incredible plans God has for our lives. If you are going through one of these tests right now, take heart. Know that God is with you, guiding you through each step of the journey. Remember that these tests are part of His process to equip you fully for His purpose. Embrace them with courage and faith, knowing that through them, you are being shaped into a vessel fit for the Master's use. Before you go, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos that will continue to empower and guide you on your spiritual journey. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and share it with others who might need this encouragement. We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, experiences, and testimonies in the comments below. Your story could be the encouragement someone else needs today. Thank you for being part of our community. Together, let's continue to grow in faith, walk boldly in God's calling, and become the chosen ones He has destined us to be. Until next time, stay blessed and keep pressing on in your journey with God.